Hello, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to do a video comparing and contrasting extroverted feeling and introverted feeling, or abbreviated FE and FI. So extroverted feeling is primarily valued by the FJ types in the Myers-Briggs system, and it's secondarily valued by the TP types. Introverted feeling is primarily valued by the FP types and secondarily valued by the TJ types. So if you value one of these functions, you don't value the other one of these functions. And so for that reason, it can be really easy to make value judgments or say this one's better than this one, or I hate people of this type, or things like that. So one thing that you can do is if you don't have one of these functions, like let's say you don't have extroverted feeling, you can kind of think of it like TE, because TE and FE have a lot of similarities and you do value one of those. And then FI and TI have a lot of similarities and you value one of those. So it's kind of a way of helping you understand the function that you don't value through the lens of the function that you do value. And what I want to do on this channel is I want to keep it really unbiased and really objective and try to objectively understand what are the strengths and weaknesses of each of these functions and keep it really balanced. So in looking at Carl Jung's quotes and Vanderhoof's quotes, there were some words that showed up over and over and over again. For extroverted feeling, that word was harmony, and I have several definitions listed here. And for introverted feeling, the word that came up the most often was misunderstood, but I don't want to use that as kind of our anchor word because it doesn't have enough explanatory value. But moral was probably the second most commonly used word. So these are the three definitions of harmony that come up, like if you just look them up on Google. So the first one's just the musical note one, and I put that here because I'm going to have a metaphor in a moment. So that's just the combination of simultaneously sounded musical notes to produce chords and chord progressions having a pleasing effect. Another definition is agreement or concord. Another definition is the quality of forming a pleasing and consistent whole. So then when I'm thinking of the quality of forming a pleasing and consistent whole, we're all working in harmony, all in agreement. A word that I think really kind of encapsulates all of those is rapport. And the definition of rapport is a close and harmonious relationship in which the people or groups concerned understand each other's feelings or ideas and communicate well. So introverted feeling is also concerned with the feeling environment, but it's internally. So instead of standards of behavior for the group, it's looking at the self. And so the word that came up was moral, and moral is concerned with the principles of right and wrong behavior and the goodness or badness of human character. So I do want to pay some honor to the word misunderstood because I am gonna just leave it behind at this point, but misunderstood just means incorrectly interpreted or understood. So introverted feeling is not depression, anxiety, or loneliness. Now you could be an FI user who is depressed, but you could also be like a TI user who's depressed. So there were quotes about introverted feeling having a tendency toward melancholy. But the thing about melancholy is you don't know what the root of it was. It could be introverted feeling that lended toward that melancholy. It could have been adverse life experiences that lended toward that melancholy. So I get a lot of people mistyping because they have some things like anxiety or loneliness, and so they think that they're an introverted feeler. But that's not a defining quality. Just because you have some negative emotions doesn't mean you're an introverted feeler. It's how you respond and what you're oriented towards. So it's part of the human experience to have negative emotions, but introverted feelers are going to do different things with negative emotions, which we'll talk about on the next slide. I think introverted feeling is not frequent, big, emotionally expressive scenes. There were many, many quotes about how introverted feeling is reserved, still waters run deep, it does not appear on the surface. So while they have this deep, complex understanding and control over their emotions, you're not going to see it. It's very reserved and beneath the surface. It's an introverted function. And then the final thing is it's not social justice warrior-esque. And what I mean by that is that warrior quality. It's not this aggressiveness in political conflict. So there were a lot of quotes about introverted feeling not having the desire to change anyone. Introverted feeling and introverted thinking both say, I've got my responsibilities, this is me and what I believe about things. You're the final decision maker for how you feel about things as well, so I don't need to tell other people how to think or how to feel. Okay, so now I want to get into a metaphor. So for extroverted feeling, since the word was harmony and it has that musical definition, I just thought that it really made sense how this harmony user is kind of like an orchestra conductor. So it says an orchestra conductor keeps the whole orchestra together, inspires the musicians to work together by communicating through the movements of his whole body, creates a rousing emotion as instrumentation soars, every note perfectly timed in synchronized harmony in one accord. So there's so many words here just about this togetherness, we're all working together in this pleasing whole. And there were quotes in the last video about how it said extroverted feeling is the reason that so many people flock to church or to the theater and with correctly adjusted emotions. And I just thought that these colors were kind of warm. There were a lot of quotes about extroverted feeling being warm, kind of inviting. It's this group thing where we all have these positive emotions. And there are a lot of quotes about extroverted feeling trying to rouse corresponding feelings in others. So they're trying to feel these correct emotions and rouse these emotions in other people. So then going to introverted feeling, when I was just kind of thinking to myself about what this metaphor should be. And my first inclination was, well, if extroverted feeling is managing all of these instruments, let's say, then maybe introverted feeling should represent one of these instruments. And then as I was thinking about it, I was thinking through the different instruments. Okay, you got cello, violin. I'm thinking through the different instruments. And then it occurred to me that introverted feeling doesn't like the traditional forms. There were so many quotes about them not liking the traditional forms and, going off and doing their own thing and being very reserved. And so I was thinking that if introverted feeling is going to represent an instrument, it's not going to be one of the instruments in this orchestra. And so I was trying to think of which instrument would it be, and I wanted it to be something that communicated a depth, kind of raw. A lot of times there were a lot of quotes about introverted feeling being non-traditional and standing up for love and justice. And so I was thinking about the hippie movement and, what instruments were really used in like the hippie movement. Anyways, there were a lot of different markers I was trying to meet, and I finally came upon an acoustic guitar, and I think that is what I would represent for introverted feeling. These are not quotes that I just made up. These were quotes that I got from like different websites. I think Wikipedia is where I got this one. So the simple and raw sound of the acoustic guitar resonated with the ideals of peace, love, and self-expression that were central to the hippie movement. The acoustic guitar is known for its authentic sound and resonance. So I really like this word resonance because with introverted feeling, it's a lot about what resonates to me personally. Does this resonate with me? And I also liked this specific picture with the introverted feeler because I think Vanderhoop and Carl Jung both said still waters run deep. And you can kind of see with this guitar, there's this lake, very placid. And there were also quotes about nature and feeling one with God and man. And there's something very meditative about this picture that you could go out here and meditate and maybe commune with God and just feeling right and at home when you're in nature, communing with yourself and God. Okay, so now I want to get into the side-by-side comparisons. So these are quotes just directly from the text. What I did is I went through and I looked at Vanderhoop's quotes and Carl Jung's quotes, and then I just kind of copied them here to contrast them side by side. So these are quotes that I got from the text. Extroverted feelings correspond with objective situations and external values. Introverted feeling shapes feeling attitudes in accordance with an inner ideal of general validity. I want to kind of continually compare these with extroverted thinking and introverted thinking so that, like I said, you can kind of understand the one you don't value through the one that you do value. So extroverted feeling and extroverted thinking are both concerned with objective values and situations and kind of adjusting themselves to what's going to work in this particular environment. In this environment, this kind of joke is going to work and get everybody laughing, or in this environment, this is what's needed. And when this person needs this from me, I will do it, and kind of adjusting the feelings that they're expressing in correspondence with what's happening objectively. So when you're at your own house, you behave a little differently. Maybe if you're a guest at someone else's house, you behave a little differently. If you're out and about, you behave differently, and kind of adjusting the feelings that you're portraying for the specific environment that you're in. Introverted feeling shapes its feeling attitudes in accordance with an inner ideal of general validity. So one word that I hear associated with introverted feeling a lot is authenticity. And the reason that I think that word is used with introverted feeling a lot is because no matter what environment you're in, the emotiveness or the expressiveness, it just stays the same. So where extroverted feeling and extroverted thinking will adjust their methods depending on what is going to work for the group in that context and kind of being in touch with what people need. Introverted feeling and introverted thinking, they're a little bit out of touch with kind of what the group needs or what will land well with the group, but they are in touch with kind of a general validity. So for introverted thinking, it's truth, and truth is truth no matter what room you're in. It's not going to change. Introverted feeling, they have these ideals of right and wrong, what they value and what they don't value, and these things don't change from room to room. So I think that's why this word authenticity kind of gets associated with introverted feeling. So introverted feeling and introverted thinking are not going to adjust the methods for what works for other people. In isolation, everyone has multiple functions, but in isolation, they're not adjusting for the group. They're just, this is how I am, and that does not change depending on where I am. The second quote was, extroverted feeling is under the spell of traditional values. And one of the quotes was, they do what is fitting and politic. Introverted feeling renounces all traditional values and generally accepted social forms. So it said that extroverted feeling might not be aware that it's under the spell of traditional values, but that nevertheless it is. So if you go to a church, for example, and it's customary that you don't wear a hat in church, they're not going to wear a hat in church or whatever. The fitting and politic quote came from, it said that they might be a guest at someone's house and they look at this painting and they say, do you like this painting? And the extroverted feeler will say, oh yes, it's great. And the reason that they say that is because it's fitting and politic to do so, and not necessarily because they genuinely believe that. But it said that it's not a lie that they're doing that, but it's an act of accommodation and an act of kindness. So where introverted feeling will sometimes say, wow, extroverted feeling, you're being really fake. And there were a lot of quotes about extroverted feeling being perceived as hollow, being perceived as fake. And there were quotes that extroverted feeling sometimes gives the appearance of not having an opinion of its own, just what's going to work in this environment. And extroverted thinking as well had that quote. It's like it has no opinion of its own. So extroverted feeling and extroverted thinking are both just kind of adjusting their methods to what's going to work. And I think extroverted feeling and extroverted thinking would say, well, I'm not adjusting like who I am, but I'm adjusting my methods because this is what the people need, and I want to meet people's needs. I'm trying to have kind of a selfless frame. Whereas on the introverted feeling side, they renounce all traditional values. And so they're saying, you know what? I don't think wearing a hat in church is relevant at all. I don't care if that's what's customary here. I don't think wearing a hat in church is useful to anything. Why are we doing this? That doesn't relate to religion at all. And they say, why are these things generally accepted? Like maybe why can't guys wear dresses? Why can't guys have long hair? So extroverted feeling might accept the traditions, like, oh yeah, the traditions aren't perfect, but this is what people like, so let's do them. Whereas introverted feelings like, no, I do not like these values, and introverted thinking's like, no, people are wrong. So with introverted feeling and introverted thinking, you get kind of a critical attitude of where are we falling short from the ideal. So a quote from extroverted feeling was, it says that extroverted feeling is responsible for people flocking to the church or to the symphony, and with correctly adjusted positive feelings. So there's a sense with extroverted feeling of there's correct feelings to have and incorrect feelings to have. And when you go to the symphony, these are the correct feelings that you should have, and they should be positive. Adjust your feelings to be positive. Introverted feeling is attracted by problems of the emotional life. So a lot of times with extroverted feelers in conversation, you'll hear a lot of the positive things that are going on. Or if they're not talking about positive things, maybe in that environment, that's what works in that environment. Maybe they've learned over time. But in general, they'll be talking about like, oh, it's such a nice day, and they really are focusing on the positive things. So topics of conversation are always to what great things are happening, positive to positive to positive. Introverted feelers are really attracted to kind of the depths and the problems of the emotional life. So from the perspective of introverted feeling and introverted thinking, they look at the extroverted judging functions, extroverted feeling and extroverted thinking, and they say, you guys look kind of shallow. You guys are just like, you didn't get deep enough into the information. Like TI says to TE, you didn't get deep enough into the information. You're just out there, spouting it to all these people, but you didn't get deep enough. And introverted feelings looking to extroverted feeling, and they're saying, you are just like controlling this whole room with these positive emotions, and you didn't even get deep enough to say like, what's going on? Whereas extroverted feeling and extroverted thinking, they look at the introverted judging functions and they say, you are getting too lost in the weeds. Introverted think, like TE says to TI, they say, why are you getting so lost in the weeds? You are getting down into the nuance of definitions. That is not important to this. We got to make progress here, and we can't make progress if you're getting lost in the weeds. And FE says to FI, you are getting bogged down in these emotional problems. At some point you got to move on. Why are we getting lost in the weeds of these values? We have these values, these basically work, so let's run with it. We met the minimum threshold. The extroverted judging functions kind of say, what's the minimum threshold we need to meet that works, and let's run with it. These are kind of the systems we have in place. These are the standards of behavior society has in place. These work for most people, so let's run with it. Whereas FI and TI are saying, why do you want the minimum standards of behavior systems that work? There are these standards of optimal truth and morals, and why would you want to do anything that falls short? Why don't we seek perfection? So that's just kind of the difference. The introverted judging functions are looking at where we fall short of perfection, and the extroverted judging functions are saying, have we met the minimum threshold that works, and then we're going to run with it, because at some point we got to move and construct something. Extroverted feeling, one of the quotes was, their feeling constantly seeks expression. Introverted feeling is shut off from expression. So extroverted feeling is constantly expressing its emotions, and like it said, it's usually correctly adjusted positive feelings. So typically you're going to see lots of expression like smiling, you're going to see laughing, hugs, compliments, anything that will express positive emotions. You get lots of these things that will express positive emotions, maybe telling a story that people will like, but constantly seeking to express that thing. Introverted feeling is pretty shut off from expression. So it's not thinking about all the time, oh, I should smile right now because I need to adjust my feelings for another person, or I should express to another person. It's not thinking about, how it should express to other people. It's just kind of like happening naturally. So, if something does make them happy, they'll smile. If something doesn't make them happy, they're not going to smile. Extroverted feeling tries to rouse corresponding feelings in others. Introverted feeling has no desire to affect others. And these were quotes in there. So extroverted feeling is trying to rouse these correctly adjusted positive feelings by expressing through themselves, and they want to rouse those corresponding feelings in others. So whatever it takes that's going to rouse these feelings in others, do they need to get them a drink? Is that going to make the person feel cared for? A lot of different social graces. And what things can I do to rouse good feelings in others? Introverted feeling doesn't have any desire to affect others. So the extroverted judging functions, extroverted feeling and extrovert thinking, kind of the regulating functions, we're trying to mobilize the group towards some end. In extroverted feeling's case, it's harmony. Introverted feeling is not, and introvert thinking are not trying to affect others. They say, these are my ideals in the case of FI, or these are my beliefs, but I'm not trying to affect other people. I'm not trying to push it on other people. I'm not trying to make them feel any other type of way. So extroverted feeling and extroverted thinking are both saying, if everyone would help the group, we'd be in a better place. So then you have extroverted thinking that says, okay, I'll teach you and I'll teach you and I'll coordinate all these pieces and then we'll all work together and then we can make these progress and I'll tell you what to do and I'll tell you what to do and da 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 da. And we'll all listen to our certain subordinates and then we'll all be good. We'll be this good working mechanism. And TI is like, wait a minute, no, get out of here with your shallow ideas. This is not working. I'm over here doing my own thing. I didn't ask you to come over here and encroach on my boundaries. You go over there, do your own thing. I'll do my own critical thinking. Thank you. I don't need to be bossed around by you. Extroverted feeling is saying, hey, I'll take care of you and I'll take care of your feelings and I'll do this and I'll do this and we'll all take care of each other and I'll be good and we'll have this kumbaya. And FI is saying, no, I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for you to do anything to my feelings. I like my feelings just the way they are. Thank you. I'll analyze my own feelings. Thank you very much. But then extroverted feeling turns around and feels like, hey, I just gave so much and I was just being so selfless. And now here you are. I was just doing so much giving and you're just taking from the room. There were quotes about how it feels like there's this vacuum of feelings into introverted feeling. And I'm giving so much and you're creating this vacuum and I just feel like I'm taking care of everyone and no one's taking care of me. Okay, so this was a direct quote. Extroverted feeling denies existence of disharmonious facts. Introverted feeling condemns the existence of disharmonious facts. So maybe there's an extroverted feeler and their spouse says something kind of rude. So for a time, they'll just kind of deny it. They'll just like, oh, we can reroute this. We can, let's get this atmosphere going a little better, and they'll kind of deny it. Especially in people that they really love. For a time, there's kind of like a denial saying, oh no, that's not, it kind of denies it. So it's like, we're only going to focus on the positive and we're going to ignore what's not working. Same with extroverted thinking. When it's trying to work toward a goal, it's like, okay, this is the stuff that's going to get toward progress. So I'm not going to focus on any of the stuff that's not getting us toward progress because I only care about the stuff that is getting us toward progress. Whereas with introverted feeling, if someone says something disharmonious or they feel like it's striking against their morals, they're going to condemn it. And they're going to be, this is where you do get some of the perception about introverted feeling with the social justice warrior. But what I mean is the justice orientation. It's not this outward regulating what people should do. So I don't think it's really a social justice warrior. But in the sense that they care about justice, it is true. And internally, or maybe with people that they're really close with, you will hear this condemnation of things that they feel like are not moral. Introverted feeling and introverted thinking are both critical because they're always referencing the ideal. This is the moral ideal or the truth ideal. And if we are falling short, they're going to criticize it because this is where they're always looking. So when you're measuring against perfection, it does give a critical attitude. So extroverted feeling and extroverted thinking are just trying to construct something. And in trying to construct something, you got to get rid of the irrelevant stuff. You got to get rid of the stuff that's not working and focus on what is working so you can construct something. Introverted feeling and introverted thinking are trying to critique things that are not meeting the standard of perfection. So they're trying to get rid of the things that are not working, while as the extroverted judging functions are trying to use the things that are working. So from the perspective of the extroverted judging functions, they look at FI and TI and they say, you're just lost in the weeds of thought and emotion. This stuff is irrelevant. Why are you looking at the stuff that's not working? Introverted feeling and introverted thinking look at the extroverted judging functions and they say, you're just being shallow. You're not getting deep enough. How come you're just skimming across the top and not really getting into the stuff? Extroverted feeling has an idealized admiration of others. It said from a young age, they would idealize their parents and really admire their parents. Introverted feeling is disappointed in others. And it's just more of the same constructing versus critiquing. So that does lead a tendency to idealizing other people. And probably too far in the idealization. It's not quite accurate. Introverted feeling, on the other hand, disappointed in others. And it's also probably not accurate. So you have these kind of inflated ways that they view other people. So because introverted feeling, as well as introverted thinking, are kind of looking at this ideal, they're always critiquing from the ideal. People are always falling short of the standard of perfection of morality, the nuance of morality, or the nuance of truth. And so it can make them quite disappointed in other people. And finally, the last one, these were quotes, that FE is bound by the judgment of others, and introverted feeling is bound by an inner moral law. There were quotes in TE and FE being sensitive to criticism because they're trying to make this work for the group. How can we make progress for the group and have an outcome for the group? And if the group didn't like it, or if it's not working, that is the final say. And so FE and TE, they're not trying to be delusional and say, oh yeah, no one liked it, but it was still good. To them, it's like, well, my rubric was, it's got to work for other people, and they said it didn't work for them, so therefore it didn't work. Introverted feeling is bound by an inner moral law. So they're not as bound up in sensitive to criticism or judgment, but they say, you know what, this worked for me. Maybe they didn't like the outcome, but FI and TI will reason, okay, if they didn't like the outcome, it's because they're not measuring against prime morals and prime truth. I have this strong conviction that I'm right because I'm constantly measuring against truth and ultimate morality. So if they didn't like it, it's because, they're not smart enough. Maybe TI will say that. They're the stupidity of man. They're not smart enough, and that's why they didn't like it. Or they're not moral enough, and that's why they didn't like it. And if they had their morals in check, they would have liked this thing. So FI and TI have a little bit more assuredness in their right. And I would say it's a little delusional. It's a little out of touch, let's say. So FE, the extroverted judging functions, can be a little swayed too much by the criticism of others. And FI and TI are not swayed enough by the criticisms of others. They're kind of out of touch with just how far off what they do works for others sometimes. So yeah, this is from the last series. I just kind of combined them on one slide, the differences between extroverted feeling and introverted feeling. I took words from the text or synonyms from the text, a lot of times words that were used over and over and over again, so you can kind of see the differences between extroverted feeling and introverted feeling. So like I said in the beginning, you value one of these functions and you don't value the other, and so for that reason it can be really easy to make value judgments. This one is better than this one. I tried to make a lot of comparisons throughout this video of comparing FE with TE a lot so that you will value one of those either way and you can kind of understand one of those. And I tried to make a lot of comparisons with FI and TI. That's my video on extroverted feeling and introverted feeling. I will have the deep dives linked below in the description if you are interested. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.